In Brazil, former President Luis Lula da Silva leads the first mass rally in Sao Paulo as part of the start of the campaign for the presidency of the nation. Russia's defense ministry denounced that the Ukraine regime used banned chemical weapons against Russian troops. And in South Africa, Misozulu Sinqobile Zulu was officially proclaimed as the new king of the Zulu people. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Brazil, former President Luis Lula da Silva leads the first mass rally in Sao Paulo as part of the start of his campaign for national presidency. The event, named Ato pela Democracia, started at 11 a.m. local time. The meeting was organized by Act for Democracy campaign and is being held at Vale do Anhangabaú in Sao Paulo, the same place where in April 1984 took place a historical rally of the Diretas Ha campaign, which called for the end of military dictatorship. This is the second major demonstration of Brazil da Esperança coalition after the official launching of its campaign for the Palácio do Planalto. President Gustavo Petro announced a profound transformation of the national police. Parity between men and women, as well as hierarchy, were some of the points advanced by the head of state. During a ceremony to transfer command held at the police headquarters in Bogota, the president announced that the proposed reform, based on the principle of human security, will also focus on its professionalization. His speech included a historical reference to what has been the relationship between the security forces of Colombia and the people.
The national police are not here to chase youngsters in the parks. The national police are not here to knock down a street vendor's food cart. That's what the national police have lived on. The national police are not here to go to a farmer's house and drag them into jail because they grow coca leaf. 25% of prisoners in jail are farmers in Colombia. This will only provoke secret underground wars in the neighborhoods, a permanent and growing confrontation between a young citizenry that is angry and young police force.
Colombian President Gustavo Petro's intense agenda also brought him to meet with his country's bankers in Cartagena, in the north of the country, where the 56th Banking Convention is held. The head of state called on them to finance production and think less about profitability. The first such meeting took place on the closing day of the convention. There he referred to the economic recession that the country has been experiencing since 2008 and which has been aggravated by the world crisis caused by the pandemic and armed conflicts. In the face of the panorama, he proposed three themes for analysis and joint work related to what the bank should finance, the democratization of production, and the urgent actions posed by the climate change. He also reminded the Colombian managers that banking alone does not generate wealth. In Venezuela, the grassroots of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela held elections to update the leaders of the community management organizations. Militants will nominate the so-called street leaders of the party with their direct, universal, and secret vote. The four most voted will be elected. Meanwhile, on August 27th, the election of the community leaders will take place on September 3rd. The election of the heads of Bolivar Chavez battle unions will be held, thus culminating the unprecedented process of renewal of government party from the grassroots levels. Brussels sees its influence slipping away in Latin America and is preparing to ramp up diplomacy and economic relations in 2023, according to European Union documents revealed by Spanish daily El País. According to a document published by the European External Action Service and reported by El País newspaper, the European Union is seeking to strengthen economic and diplomatic relations in the region, mainly due to the increase in economic relations between China and Latin America. Likewise, experts point out that the approach takes place in the context of the inflation suffered by Europe after the imposition of sanctions to Russian oil and gas, as well as food shortage situation as a result of the conflict in Ukraine. The document was made public following a request by the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, to Latin American leaders to join sanctions against Russia. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this.
It is our duty to reverse the damage we caused.
Welcome back from South. In Russia, the Ministry of Defense announced that the Ukrainian regime used banned chemical weapons against Russian troops. The Russian Defense Ministry claimed that its specialists will submit a document to the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons with evidence of the use of chemical weapons against soldiers by Ukrainian military. According to the statement, on July 31st, Russian soldiers were performing tasks in the Zaporizhzhia region and had to be transferred to a military hospital with signs of severe poisoning. The Russian military medical authorities determined through an examination the presence of a botulinum toxin type B, a poison of artificial origin, in the blood of the poisoned soldiers. This report is added to the documents presented by Moscow and chemical and biological laboratories financed from the United States in Ukraine. In Ukraine, Russian forces eliminated some 20 U.S. mercenaries in Adravka village in Kharkov region. The Russian Defense Ministry reported on Saturday that its air force shot down around 80 members of Kraken extremist group. The report details that since the beginning of military operations in Ukraine on February 24th, Russian troops have disabled 267 aircraft, 148 helicopters, 1,776 drones, a numerous number of anti-aircraft missiles, 809 In Lugansk, Donbass, there is new evidence of Ukrainian terrorist attacks against civilians, from the destruction of residential buildings to attacks on their own population prior to the arrival of Russian troops, to the spreading of miniature mines in urban areas. Our special envoy Alejandro Kirk has more.
Pervomaisk, or May Day, is one of many mining towns in the Donbass.
On the evening of August 16th, this building on my back was shelled by Ukrainian forces using the new rockets provided by the United States.
Neighbors here demand more resolute action from Russia to end attacks.
Because I am Russian too, we're all Russians here. We're sick and tired of putting up with all this. We're fed up. Here we sit her down, kids die, and that's it. And that's settled with 4 rockets to the other side. This is the kind of moment in things, in time, when you have to hit Kiev, I think. In Kiev, you send just 4 rockets to hit the banks and the parliament, and this epic will stop.
A short trip through Lugansk takes us to the areas recently recaptured by Russian troops and people's militias. This point marked until recently the border between Lugansk and Ukraine. We soon reached the hotly contested twin cities of Lugansk and Severodonetsk, now under Russian control. This was the building of the Ukrainian border guard troops. As soon as we enter, a message reminds us of who they are. But the story of Zoya, a neighbor, is nevertheless astonishing.
Clearly, no one wanted war. We didn't expect this war, but when we saw that what was happening, what the Ukrainians were doing here, we just went into shock. We all saw it. We were shocked because they were shooting all the time. The Ukrainians were constantly attacking our city from Severodonetsk, although there were no Russians around yet. One day, they were shelling a square here, then another one 3 days later, and on the 4th, another one. I think they were pretending that there was a military situation here, and they were shooting all the time, creating this atmosphere as if there was a war going on here.
Before fleeing, they promised to raze everything to the ground.
People say that the military was constantly on alert because they had installed booby traps. They blew up our water reservoir where the central pump was. They did it. They said they were going to do it, and they did it. I must clarify that not everyone saw it, but in the end, they did not even hide it. When they started to leave, they themselves advised everyone to leave. They had friends in various places at that time, and they told them to leave because we are going to wipe this place off the face of the earth. That's how they spoke, bluntly. They didn't hide it.
In Lysychansk, this ruined mansion hides dangerous secrets. Miniature anti-personnel mines, the kind Ukraine launches in missiles into the urban areas of the Donbass. Alejandro Kirk, teleSUR, Lugansk People's Republic.
UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres paid a visit on Saturday to the Joint Coordination Center overseeing Ukrainian grain exports in Istanbul. During a joint press conference with Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar at the Joint Coordination Center, Guterres thanked Turkey for its key role in signing the recent grain export agreement, officially known as the Black Sea Grain Initiative. The UN Secretary-General also noted that this agreement represents the beginning of a much longer process, but that the potential of this agreement, which he called critical, has already been demonstrated. Regarding the quantity of grains exported, Guterres considered that it is necessary to gradually increase them in order to cap and reduce prices for consumers.
Without fertilizer in 2022, there may not be enough food in 2023. Getting more food and fertilizer out of Ukraine and Russia is critical to further calm commodity markets and lower prices for consumers.
Likewise, Turkey Defense Minister Hulusi Akar stressed that through the Joint Coordination Center, it has played a significant role to overcome food crisis.
I believe that the work carried out through the Joint Coordination Center has made significant contributions to overcoming the food crisis affecting the whole world, especially to lowering prices.
South Korea reported 84 COVID-19 related on Saturday, setting a record high for more than 3 months amid the continued virus wave driven by a highly contagious Omicron subvariant. The number of daily COVID-19 deaths in the country has kept an upward trend in the last week, with 67 new deaths reported last Saturday and 83 on Friday. According to data published by the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency, as of Saturday, the total death toll came in at nearly 26,000 and the fatality rate stood at 0.12%. A health ministry official said the death toll is expected to continue to increase as new infections keep climbing. In the United Kingdom, the railway strike continues in protest against the rise in inflation that affects British wages. This Saturday continues the nation's transport strike, which on Thursday, August 18th, brought transport in the United Kingdom almost to a standstill. Residents report areas without train service, as well as the operation of 1 out of 5 trains. Union representatives and leaders warned that protests in the country could intensify unless a compromise could be reached on pay rises and working conditions. According to the Bank of England, inflation in the country will exceed 13% in 2022, mainly affecting the food and energy sectors. And according to a United Nations report, the Israeli occupation authorities demolished 50 Palestinian-owned structures in East Jerusalem and Area C of the West Bank. The report published by the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs also stated that these Israeli operations displaced 55 people, including 28 children, and affected the livelihoods of approximately 220 others. Authorities recorded that 12 of the demolished structures were donor-funded humanitarian assistance projects. The report explained that 42 of the structures were in Area C of the Jerusalem Governorate, including 13 demolished in 2 Bedouin communities. More news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In South Africa, Misozulu Sinqobile Zulu was officially proclaimed this Saturday as the new king of the Zulu people. Prince Misozulu Zulu, 46 years old, was named the new king of the Zulus, South Africa's most populous ethnic group, and successor to his father, Goodwill Siwelithini, who died in March. The prince was designated as the new king in the will of his mother region, Chiyiwe Mantfombi Telewini, who died on April 30th at the age of 65. The decision was announced at a family meeting held in Bongoma, where the Zulu royal household has its residence. The meeting took place after the funeral of Misozulu's mother.
Zulu culture. To us, this is the great day where our king is now officially announced, although His Majesty is on the throne. But today is a symbolic where the whole nation will show that our ancestors will also accept him as the king.
In Chad, this Saturday began a new round of inclusive national dialogue aimed at reaching an agreement to call elections and return to a civilian government. The opening of a national dialogue in N'Djamena City gathers 1,400 delegates from the military government, civil society, opposition parties, trade unions, and rebel groups. These talks were prompted by Board Chief General Mahamat Idris Deby, who took power last year replacing his father, who ruled for 3 years and was assassinated during military operations against rebels. This meeting takes place after an agreement earlier this month with more than 40 opposition groups to start peace talks. In Somalia, the death toll in an attack by Al-Shabaab militants on a hotel in the capital Mogadishu rose to 20. According to a security services official, in the last hours it was confirmed the discovery of another 5 dead victims. He also detailed that most of the civilians who were in the hotel at the moment of the attack have already been rescued. Of this group of people, at least 40 are being treated for injuries suffered in the assault on the hotel. The attack began on Friday night and lasted about 15 hours after members of the Somali criminal armed group forced their way into the Hyatt Hotel building, which is frequented by politicians and government officials, and randomly shot at civilians inside. Argentina's government is considering to initiate legal actions against those responsible for the forest fires in the islands along the delta of Paraná River. The Vice Minister of Environment and Sustainable Development, Sergio Federovisky, stated that once they have been able to find who is working in the different places where the fires are taking place, they will take direct legal action against those responsible for the attack on nature. This is after stating that almost all of the fires in the area are intentional, and insisted on the responsibility of the judicial system to investigate those cases. Regarding the work to control the fire, he affirmed that there is a record number of over 120 brigade members working, and added that to the 10 aerial means that were present on Friday, another 3 were added in the last hours: a helicopter with a helipad, a hydroplane plane, and a helicopter for brigade transportation. In Spain, the emergency services declared the forest fire in the community of Valencia contained. The evacuated population started to return to their homes. According to emergency services, the Beijing fire, which is affecting the Spanish region of Valencia and which burned 17,500 hectares of forest, is evolving favorably. Also, the national security reported that the perimeter of the fire has reached 135 kilometers, while 2,200 people evacuated by the fire can return to their homes. According to figures from the European Forest Fires Information System, Spain has suffered close to 400 forest fires so far this year as a consequence of long droughts and heat waves. The death toll of flooding caused by a landslide in western China has risen to 23 on Saturday, while 8 other people are still missing. A sudden rainstorm in western China's Qinghai province triggered a landslide that diverted a river and caused flash flooding that hit 6 villages in Datong County, forcing some 1,500 people out of their homes. More than 600 firefighters and 100 fire engines joined in the rescue work, and an investigation of the cause of the landslide is underway. China is facing both heavy rains and flooding in some parts of the country this summer and the extreme heat and drought in other regions. State media have described the prolonged heat and drought as the worst since record-keeping started 60 years ago. In India, at least 15 people died as a result of floods and landslides caused by monsoon rains in recent days. 8 of the victims are related to a landslide in the northern state of Himachal Pradesh, where 2 houses were swept away by floodwaters. These deaths are added to the list of 48 deaths recorded in June 2022 due to flash floods that reached pilgrims camps, railway workers, and army reservists in the state of Manipur. Floods and landslides are more frequent in India during the monsoon season from June to September, and climate change has increased their frequency and intensity. We have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. And now you can also follow us on TikTok, account at teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.